to today's call where we will be talking about the medicine wheel and connecting with nature. So, as always, first we're going to start by connecting with spirit, calling in spirit. So, if you'd like to just get comfortable for a moment and close your eyes, settle in, and take a deep breath. And imagine a field outside or somewhere out in nature where there's an open space. And in that space, there's a fire in the center. Connecting in with, for a moment, with the power and the energy and the sacredness of fire. And imagining now that there's nearby or somehow surrounding the circle a flow of water. And taking a moment to connect with that gentle flow of water and the element of water. And taking a moment to feel the earth below you and that nurturing, grounding energy of Mother Earth. And feeling around you a light and gentle breeze of crisp, clean air. Maybe even imagining that you can smell that air as you take it in through your nose, connecting with that life giving energy of the air. And imagine now that we're all in a circle around the fire, leaving space for all the people who will watch this recording later. And as we're all there, holding hands and connecting with each other around the fire, from your heart, from the center, send your love out to everyone in the circle now and in the future. And take a moment to call in any guides, helpers, angels, or ancestors into the circle. And feeling them add their love to the circle. We ask Spirit to help us from a loving and supportive community. We ask for guidance and support in building connections with one another and with our spirit guides. We ask for help creating open, clear communication with our spirit helpers so that we can be guided to live our best lives for our own highest good and the highest good of those around us. And now imagine from your heart center a feeling of gratitude emanating from your heart. Feeling that go out to everyone in the circle now and in the future. And offering gratitude to the spirit helpers who have come to support us today. And now imagining that your heart center opens to receive and that everyone in the circle is giving their love, their gratitude to you, including all those helpers on the spirit side that have come. Taking a moment to say yes and allow that receiving into your heart. Perfect. Thank you. You can open your eyes now and come back to the here and now. Thank you for that. And so, again, a little bit more about what we're doing today. I'm going to do an introduction to the medicine wheel. So, we're going to continue that into the next call. Today, we're going to focus on the way the medicine wheel connects us to nature. And we're going to talk a lot about the cardinal directions. And we're going to do a journey to one of those directions to the east so that you can then use that template to practice on your own how to journey to the other directions. So, to just honor a little bit about the medicine wheel and where it comes from. It's the term medicine wheel usually connects to its history with Native Americans in this continent in North America and sometimes in South America. Um, However, it's been used everywhere around the world. You'll find the mandala in Tibet. There are stone circles all over Western Europe. There are similar circles in Siberia, and there are circles in Egypt. And it's theorized that there are a lot of circles in other areas that were made of materials that have just simply degraded, and we don't have the same knowledge or information about them. But it's got history in all cultures, or many, many cultures around the world, and it goes back a very long way. Um, the medicine wheel is a circle, and that's a major part of the symbology. That's a really important part. It's as a circle, it represents the cycles of life that are never ending. So things that have no beginning and end, they just continue on, like the seasons, like like a cycle of life. Even though each one of us does have a beginning and end, there are generations that go on. And so the medicine wheel is a way of connecting to cycles in a circular way. And it can be done both through the natural world, it can be connected to stages of life, it can even be connected to psychological stages and projects that we do. So even thinking about, and we'll get into this more in the next call, but thinking about um, grieving and cycles of an emotional process like grief. It kind of has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it doesn't always go in an exact pattern. It's a circle, it cycles through. You can even, in Celtic traditions, they see it not as much as a cycle as a spiral, which can sometimes connect to different parts of itself. But all of it is, that symbol of something being circular and having cycles and having seasons. And so we have that in things like psychological and emotional processes like grief. We have that in our actual lives as we grow from infancy into childhood, into adulthood, and then becoming an elder. Um, and we see it in projects. You can use it in the beginning, the middle, and the end of a project, which, well, again, that's the part that we'll get into next. But it can be a really powerful tool for kind of gauging where you are in a process, and drawing strength from the different elements and the different directions and things to inform and bring wisdom to a project, a cycle in life, or just anywhere that you are. So today, we're mainly going to be focusing on how it connects with nature and the cardinal directions. And then in the next one, we'll talk more about the equating it to projects and cycles of life, and or cycles of emotion and sort of the psychology of it. So any questions so far? All right. So traditionally, one of the ways that the medicine wheel has been manifested in reality, or sort of anchored in the everyday world, is by creating a circle of rocks. And within that circle is a cross of rocks. So it cuts it into 4 sections. And those 4 sections are what's generally equated with the cardinal directions: east, west, north, and south, as well as each one of those has an element, which I'll get more into detail in a little bit. But that is something that you can think about actually making. It can be writ large, something you put in a backyard that takes up a lot of space, or it can be something you do with little pebbles at home. It can be something that you draw. And it can be something that you just use in the imaginal realm and just see when you're journeying in your mind's eye. So there's lots of different ways of representing it. And when you journey, like always, the best way to ask how to represent it is to check in with your spirit guides and see what they want you to do, how they want you to best work with it, and how you can best engage with that. And like always, with everything throughout any of these calls, if I say something is a certain way, if I say the east is associated with air, and when you journey to the east, you associate it with water, go with water. Whatever it is for you is absolutely the way it should be. And it can be approached in many different ways. And you'll notice if you study the medicine wheel in different cultures, there are colors that are go with each of the quadrants, but those are different from one group to another, one culture to another. And again, sometimes the east will have a certain element like water, earth, air, fire, but it'll be different from one group to another. Some of them also have animals that are associated with each of the quadrants. You don't have to take any of that and use it as yours. If any of them speak to you, go with it. But always, just when you do your journeys, ask those kinds of questions and see what comes up for you from your own guides, from connecting with the elements and the directions yourself, and then absolutely go with that, and not what anyone else tells you. um, so just you one way that people work with the medicine wheel is two ways actually. One is that you can journey, like I've been talking about, and we'll do a journey to the east to give you an example of that. So you can actually, through non-ordinary reality in a journey, you can go out and connect with each of those elements, ask how they can be represented in your life, or you can draw on those energies. So we'll talk about what each of those elements, each of those directions represents, and you can use those to actually draw on that when you need that in your life. And another way that you can incorporate the medicine wheel is to use it either during special ceremonies, or during even your daily morning rituals in front of your altar, or evening whenever you do your ritual with your altar. You can just simply call in the directions and sing, rattle, hum, whatever you do with them, or just simply honor them. Stand in each of the directions and just call in the energies of the east, and honoring the east. Thank you for coming east, and then move to the next one, and do that as sort of an opening of your morning ritual, just to bring in all of the elements of the earth and of nature, and really connecting to all those cardinal directions. And it sort of just amplifies that energy. And because of that, some folks like to use it just for special occasions. So maybe not every day. You certainly are able to do it every day. It's not going to hurt anything. But it also creates a little more, needs a little more time. And if you're doing a short ceremony, you only have a few minutes in the morning, then maybe save it for when you're doing something special. If you have a project that you're starting, if you have something that you're trying to change in yourself, a habit that you're beginning or ending, you can do ceremony in front of your altar, call in your spirits, call in all the cardinal directions, and really just amplify that healing energy, and get that arsenal of spirit on your side. So those are some of the main ways that you can use the medicine wheel in your everyday life. And in addition to the four, there's the north, east, south, and west, but then there's also the above, the below, and the inner. So when you are connecting, you always want to add those in as well. And we'll go over all that information in a moment. But the above is the heavens, the celestial, the star nation. Some people work directly with the sun or the moon energies. And then the below is, of course, Mother Earth, which we did a little bit of grounding and with that in our opening this morning. So that's those two. And then the inner is you. The inner is just honoring the fact that we are part of the natural cycle of life. Whether we stop to think of it that way or not, we do cycle through everything. We cycle through a 24-hour day. We cycle through waking and sleeping. We cycle through, all of the different stages of life. And then we're born and we die and we go back to the earth. So we're all part of that cycle, and honoring that inner is a really important part of that. That's actually the center of the wheel, which, all things pull into that center and draw energy into that center, which is you. And it's an important part of um, bringing yourself into the ceremony and honoring the inner, and making sure that you know that you are also a cycle and that you interact with nature, again, whether we do it consciously or not. So um, in modern world, we've gotten away from our natural selves in a lot of ways. We no longer necessarily wake up with the sun and go to bed when it's dark like we used to. We don't eat according to what's seasonal. There's a lot of ways that technology has sort of pulled us away from the natural world, and so that's why this is important. What we're talking about today, bringing us back into connection with the cycles of nature, is a really big way of helping us reconnect in ways where we are feeling whole and feeling connected with the earth. And we've all seen what it looks like when a group of people, when us as humans have gotten away from connecting with the earth. We stop caring about what happens, to the climate, what happens to animals that are shoved out of spaces, and we just sort of take over. So and when we reconnect as a people and we teach those around us to reconnect to nature, can be a really protective thing. Just psychologically, we're caring more about what's around us, and therefore we're protecting it more. Other benefits are that there are studies that show that even just looking at a picture of nature has a before and after effect. People feel more calm, they feel less anxious. There are also a lot of correlations made between reduction in anxiety and depression for folks that spend more time in nature. So think about those sorts of things when you're, what is the point of all of this? It actually has some real world impact on our psychology, on our emotional states, in order to build those connections so that we feel more at whole. And truly, when we came up evolutionarily speaking, we were connected to nature. We were dependent on nature for we're still dependent. We don't think of it that way, but we still have to eat food that comes from the earth. But we used to depend on it in a more connected way than we do now. So it's easy to think we're sort of above it. But the truth is, psychologically, we were evolved to connect with nature and to be aware of the seasons and what foods are available, what animals might be in the area, and both that are going to hurt us and that are going to help us. So when we evolved for that, and now that we don't have that, the amount of time that we've had technology and been away from that is minuscule compared to all of the time that our brains and our psychologies developed to be within nature. So there are some folks who really feel that, of course, anxiety and depression and conditions like that are multi-layered and varied for each person. But being away from nature, I think as a whole, as a community, has had an impact that has been destructive on our psychology. So again, as an individual, and as individuals, we all touch groups of people around us. So when we connect with nature and we find that sense of healing in ourselves, that reverberates out. And as we rise, as one person rises, we all rise together. So consider that in thinking about maybe finding ways to connect. And I'll talk about specific ways that you can connect with nature, as well as doing the medicine wheel. But we'll do the specific ways kind of at the end. So one way that's important just psychologically is just knowing where we are, just being centered in ourselves. Again, that inner, where is our cycle? And there's really simple ways of doing that. Just noticing your rhythms. Where's the sun? How are you feeling? How do you feel in the morning? How do you feel midday? How do you feel in the evening? A lot of people have different energy cycles and flows that correspond with that. So just being aware of that makes you more aware of yourself as a person. It makes you more in the moment and present with the day, where the day is flowing, and then you're flowing with it. Same thing with the night, and how we're sleeping, and when we're going to bed, and being mindful of where the sun is. I know, unfortunately, we can't all just get up when we naturally are ready to get up, and we can't all go to bed when it naturally feels right to us. Our lives are on a calendar many times, but if you can, and even if it's just on weekends or vacations or something, be mindful of maybe trying to reset your clock a little bit. And and the summers are different than the winters. There's a lot more sunlight in the summer, and so going to bed later might feel better because we just have that sense of, the sun is up and I'm not ready to go to bed yet. If you're one of those folks, myself included, I'm guilty of this, who has blackout curtains and things like that to sleep. If you needed to sleep, do what's right for you. And by no means don't let me sway you at all. But again, if there are times of the week where you don't have to have a really good night's sleep, try letting in just a little. It doesn't have to be full open, but a little peak of light, or even using alarm clocks that mimic the sunrise, so that you can just get up with that sun, even if it's fake sun. It helps reset those rhythms. It helps you feel like you're connected to the sun, and you're getting up with the sun, and you're going to bed when it sets, and things like that. Um, so moving on, we're going to talk about the different attributes of the directions. So when you're using the medicine wheel, like I said, there's 4 quadrants, and then they're above, below, and the inner. So starting with the 4 quadrants, there's the east, west, north, and south. A lot of folks will enter the wheel. So if you've made an actual physical large wheel that you're stepping into, a lot of folks will enter from the east. Again, this is up to you because traditions do it differently anyway. But the east feels like a natural part to enter because it's where the sun rises. So the sun is where it's a new beginning, and it's often attributed to air. So again, these associations, if you get in there and you find it to be different, go with what you find. I'm just going to teach the way that I know it. So with east, again, the sun rises, it's new beginnings. Think of it as a newborn in the early infancy years of life. Any kind of energy that comes with that. It's fresh, it's exciting, it's creative, everything is new, everything is you want to stick in your mouth and taste because you're trying to take everything in from your senses. So that's the energy of East, new beginnings, a fresh start. It's the seed of an idea. So when you think of, again, we'll get into this more in the next one, but when you're starting a new project, it's kind of, you've had that kernel of a seed in your mind that's been incubating, and now it's actually coming through the earth and just poking out as a little teeny sprig of plant. So that's that energy. It's a place of discovery. It's sort of, you can think of it as maybe the brainstorming part. It's when everything is still exciting and new before all those doubts and everything else start to come in. Like a baby, they're all about possibilities, and everything is fresh and possible. And before we start getting jaded as older adults and start realizing that not everything we plan to do works out exactly. When you're a baby, you have no doubt. You go bravely into that world, and you stick everything in your mouth and touch everything and stick things up your nose just to see what it feels like. So that's kind of the energy of the East. It's new, exciting, fresh. It's the sun rising. It's the new day. So yeah, that's that. It's also spring. Okay, so then moving on is the next one. You again, the wheel usually goes clockwise. I haven't come across anything that says it to be different. In fact, I've had some traditions will teach that when you go counterclockwise, you're undoing energy. So just be mindful of that. Again, check in with your guides. If you're a counterclockwise person, there's, I'm sure, a reason for that, and go with that. But generally, the teachings are that counterclockwise is undoing energy. It's undoing something, and it's a little bit intense. It's like tearing down something. So I would advise going clockwise for most things. So you're going clockwise from the east, then you go to the south, which is the element of fire. And this is a very creative part. It's thinking of those sort of early years. You're out of infancy and toddler. Now you're starting to run. You're starting to move. You're starting to dance. There's really strong, passionate emotions. You know, when you're a kid moving into those early and teen years, everything is passionate and huge. There's nothing that you do that's small. Everything is really creative, and again, maybe not super jaded yet. So it's about heat and fire, and there's a lot of dance and song and creativity in the East. So that's something to think about when if you want to or need to draw on those certain elements in anything that you're doing. And then moving again clockwise, next is west, which correlates to water. And the west is more like adulthood, so it flows like water. You've gotten the rhythm of life down a little bit. You kind of you have some responsibilities, you have some experience under your belt, you have a little bit of clarity. You're no longer trying to figure out who you are, but you have that the wisdom that comes with some experience and some tried and true things that you've done for yourself, and you know what works and doesn't work. You know what you like and what you don't like. And just like water, it can flow. Mostly water just flows pretty easily and goes with the flow. And when it has obstacles, it just flows around it. It finds a way around. But it can also be very powerful. So it has both those things in the West. It can be, it has that, again, the wisdom that comes with experience. And it has some tempered knowledge of knowing when is it time to just go with the flow? When is it time to be a waterfall or a raging tsunami to push something out of the way? So it has both those energies to it. It's kind of being with the moment. It's again, like you're not, as a child, you're out there running around, touching everything, doing everything. Everything feels big and passionate and huge. And as an adult, you begin to kind of just be able to flow with that moment a little bit more. But with that comes a lot more freedom. You've already tried things. You don't have to go around trying 100 different things to see which one you like, or which one works, or which one you're good at, or which one you're skilled at. You get to have that. You have more freedom. You have more ability because of your knowledge to choose directions more wisely and with more capability. So there's some maturity. There's some developed skills. That's all elements of water in the West. And then moving last in the four directions to, but not last in the medicine wheel, is north and east, or sorry, north and earth. So north is the end of the cycle. It's the elder years of life. It is deep wisdom and understanding. In many traditional societies, this is where the story keepers are and the teachers. This is where people pass on the experience. So there's a little bit of obligation to the feeling of the north, because as an adult, you're gathering information and you're using your wisdom for yourself. But in the north, you're using that wisdom for society. You're letting other people learn from your experiences. You're passing on that wisdom. You're passing on the stories. It's a place more of relaxation. Think of retirement. Those retirement years, your obligations have changed. Traditionally, in traditional societies, when people were elders, that was their job, to hold wisdom and to make good decisions for the group based on a much larger breadth of wisdom. Whereas they didn't have to, they weren't expected to go out and do the hunting and gathering and the heavy laboring and things like that. They were there to be the tradition keepers and the storytellers. So it's got that kind of energy to it. It's more of a rest. And when you think of the cycle of a project, this would be the completion. This would be the part where there's always a pause and you take in what you've done and what you've learned and think about how that might be helpful in the future. It's taking that pause before you rush into something new, to just find out where you are, to just see how that went for you, to find out what lessons were there, to pass them on to others, or just pass them on to yourself for future reference. So, and then, it's the element of earth. So it's going back, everything comes from the earth and goes back to the earth. So it's that kind of final part of the cycle. Being with the earth. And as we go back to the earth, as our bodies go back to the earth, we also, again, are giving in that state where we're we're using the elements that are our body to nurture the earth and to grow new things out of that. So again, that's kind of that passing on energy of, anyone who's familiar with the hero's journey, at the end of the hero's journey, the hero comes back home. And now, having lived through all of the trials and tribulations and learned what they have and gathered any skills or any magic fiery swords or whatever they gathered, they come back into their community with that, and are there to help others find the way. They've blazed the trail and they've made it easier for folks coming in behind them. So that's that energy of the north and the earth. And then, as I said, there's the above, the below, and the inner. So we'll start with the above. This is the sun, the moon, the star nation. It's the energies of the heaven, the celestial energies. And that's much more cosmic. So it's our higher self. It's looking at our higher purpose, not just what am I doing today or how am I fixing my career, but what is my soul arc? What am I here for? What are my karmic lessons? What's my soul path? This is where you can call in help for ancestral work. It's kind of the bigger picture, not just of the here and now for each of us, but of our soul's journey in all of our lives and all of the ways that we connect to one another in spirit and in incarnate. So that's kind of that bigger picture realm. It's work where folks sometimes do tap into past life regression work here. You can tap into astral projection, folks who do out of body experience or are talking and teaching from places of having a near-death experience. That's all sort of having tapped into the above and the energies of the above. I haven't been pausing for questions. Are there any questions so far? Okay. Thank you. So then there's the below, which again is the earth. We've talked about a little bit, and I think this is the one that people are probably most familiar with. Just the idea of Mother Earth, of Gaia. It's all of our bodies are literally made up of the elements of the earth. That's where we get fed from. That's where the water comes from. That's where air is created. So it's nurturing on both a literally we would die without it sort of level, but then also there's an emotional, we can ground and sort of bring our frenzied mental energy back down through our bodies and into the earth to be connected in a way where we feel that maybe we're not responsible for everything all the time. It's a really good place whenever you are feeling anxious or feeling that energy of what's going to be, what's going to come, worries about the future. Grounding and touching in with Mother Earth is a great way of just realizing the planet has been here for millennia and before us, and it'll be here millennia after us. And it kind of puts things into a perspective in that way of not taking everything quite so seriously. When we look at the grand scheme of things, whatever little situations or anxieties we're dealing with are really not that big a deal. And we bring that energy back to earth in a way where, the mother energy of earth is very nurturing, very loving. It's unconditional love. It's non-judgmental love, which also means it's neutral in the same way as, the animals eat one another and none of us want to be eaten, but we understand that that's part of the life chain. And so Mother Earth does not have judgment of good or bad in any way. So it's a good way also of grounding energies. If you're feeling judgmental, if you're feeling like I just can't stop being angry with this person who did this one thing, it's a good thing to just kind of bring that again energy out of the head, drop it right through the heart and into the earth, because the earth composts that energy. There's no energy that's bad for the earth. She just takes it in and will repurpose it. So it's never think that if you're grounding and using that energy or bringing energy into the earth that's negative, it's again, she's neutral. So I like to liken it to the way dogs sniff and smell. If you think of the way dogs don't think of any smell as bad, right? Some of the most rotten, horrible smells, they roll right in and want it all over them. So for them, it's all information. It's completely neutral. Smells tell them something. And that's the same way we can think of energy as being neutral. Same thing with the heavens. The heavens, again, grand scheme of things, we go through some terrible, terrible things in life. And we do terrible things to one another. But on the grand scheme of things, that's all neutral. It's all it's all karmic, it's all things working itself out, it's all experience, it's all wisdom and knowledge. And that's on either we go above or below those, it's all neutral. So if you need help with energies, like letting energies go like that, where you're having a hard time with judgment, up or down is a good way to go. And then there's the inner. So we talked about that a little. It's super important to honor the self. You're part of the circle. And so that's that, bringing that non-judgmentalism to the self, which is hard. And we all can't be in that place of non-judgmentalism and self-acceptance all the time. But when you're in the circle, try and just love your inner for exactly where it is right now, even if you didn't get the 20 things done from your to-do list that you had planned. So yeah, then honoring yourself, and just taking a moment to notice where you are in the cycle, and notice that you are part of the cycle is a good way of connecting to that whole medicine wheel in all of those directions. Often when people do this, they do this in the way that the order that I just went. So you start in the east, and then you go through all the cardinal directions, and then you go to the upper, and then you go to the below, the above and the below, and then you take it back home into yourself, because again, you're in the center. And so all of those energies are flowing into you. You're calling on them, you're honoring them, you're bringing them into your space, wherever that is, wherever you're doing that. So that's, you kind of end with the inner, and not only honor your inner, but then also sit with a place of gratitude. Sitting with a place of gratitude for all of those energies that have shown up is always a great way to end any kind of ritual, any kind of ceremony, anything that you're doing. Always feel that grateful feeling for the energies that have shown up for you. And that's a really powerful way of integrating those energies as well. So let's see. So again, like just some ways to integrate this process into your life is to journey to the different directions. And we'll do east today, but I really encourage you to do the journeying on your own with your spirit guide to each of those different directions, and finding out. And by the way, journeying to the inner is a great way to find out about your physical body and anything that's coming up with that. So if you're having your left hip is hurting and you have no idea why or where it came from, that's a journey to the inner with a spirit guide, and see if you can talk to the hip and find out what's going on or whatever that issue is. So journeying to that, and then also potentially doing that as a daily part of your daily ritual, just calling in. It doesn't need to be a grand, great, big thing where you do a lot with it. Just calling in, just facing each of the directions and rattling or drumming and or singing or whatever you do, or simply just asking them to be here and honoring them and thanking them for the energy that they give you that day. If you know that that day you really are low energy and you just need the passion and fire of the South, call it in and say, I could really use your help today, South. I got this thing going and I got an art project that I am starting to get tired of, and I just really need it. I really need your help, or, something, whatever, you can call that in. And again, we'll kind of go over how to apply it to projects and things in the next one. So are you ready to journey? Awesome. Okay. So just a quick intro to how it's going to go. I will guide you through all of it. But, something I wanted to say that I just realized after working with the last recording, when I'm on Zoom and I stop, if I'm drumming, but I stop talking, it stops picking it up. So I think Zoom just considers that background noise. It's looking for a voice, and when it doesn't hear a voice, it lets that go. So what I'm going to try to do today, and hope that it works and hope that it's not too annoying, is I'm going to do the drumming, and I'm just going to add a little bit of humming. I will talk through it, occasionally, but there are going to be pauses while you're processing it. So I'll try and hum or sing just a little bit so that it's picking up some of my voice, and hopefully that picks up the drumming. So this is a learning process with me, so bear with me. Hopefully it works. So what we're going to do is, as always, we're going to call in our spirit guide. We're going to, and I'll walk you through this, so you don't have to remember it. I just like to introduce it so you know where we're going. we'll start out with an imaginal realm going into the non-ordinary reality of a beautiful place in nature, where we'll call in our power animal or spirit guide. I'll let you guys choose because I've given you directions on meeting both of those, and hopefully you've done that. And then we'll ask spirit, we'll state our intention, because remember, the two most important things about a journey are focus and intention. So we'll set our intention to our spirit guide to journey to the east and air. And then I'll kind of guide you through some questions that you can check in with the east. And then remember that there's so I'll do this real quick and hopefully it'll pick it up. So the normal drum beat, and then there's the callback. And then there's the return. So I'll call those out as I say that. I'll let you know what we're doing. I'm not going to make you guys remember that, but just know that throughout it'll just be the normal regular drum beat. And then when you hear the change in beat, that's calling back. That's saying it's time to come back, wrap it up, finish up whatever you're doing. And then the fast beat is when we'll ask spirit guide or whoever you're working with, your power animal or spirit, to return you back into ordinary reality, back into the here and now. So again, I'll walk you through all of that, but just look for those sounds. So go ahead and take a moment to just get situated and get comfortable. And settle in, closing your eyes. Just taking a moment to notice your breath. Noticing the weight of your body on the surface it's being supported by. Just letting yourself settle in and accepting how you're feeling exactly as you are right now in this moment. Imagine yourself in a beautiful place in nature. Take a moment to enjoy the sights, the sounds, the smells. Wait, hold on. What's that?
See, the one is cutting out every time you stop talking.
Okay.
So.
Okay, I was worried about that. I hadn't tried it with okay, so what I'll do, thank you for that feedback. We'll just do it. We'll just use a little bit of hypnosis then. We don't have to have the drumming. The drumming is nice. And if you want to do this part of the video again on your own and just, find a recording of drumming to add to it, go ahead and do that. But we'll do it. We'll start over and we'll do it a little bit different. So thank you for that feedback. Okay, so go ahead and close your eyes and settle in again. Taking a nice deep breath and imagining that as you breathe in, you're breathing in relaxation. And that relaxation fills your body, starting with the head, moving down into the neck. Breathing that relaxation into the shoulders, down into the upper arms, elbows, lower arms, down into the wrists and the hands. And then that relaxation spills over the shoulders into the chest and upper back, down through the abdomen, breathing in that relaxation into the pelvic bowl, into the hips, down into the legs, knees, lower legs, all the way down to the ankles and feet. Feeling each breath deep in that sense of peaceful, calm, relaxation, knowing that you are at the exact right level of relaxation for you. Good. Now, in your mind's eye, imagine a beautiful place in nature. It can be a place you've seen or been, or it can be a place that you simply imagine. Beautiful, peaceful, sacred place in nature. And just take a moment to notice what you see around you, any sounds you might hear, the smells and scents on the air. Feel on your skin, maybe there's a breeze or some sun. Even imagining that you take a deep breath in through your mouth and you can taste the crisp, clean air of this beautiful sacred place. And from within this beautiful sacred place, call to your power animal or other guide to join you. Good. And with your guide there, either you sense them there or you just trust that they've shown. Go ahead now and state your intention. I am journeying to the east and the element of air. Now allow your animal to take you there, moving you in the way that's right for you and your guide to the east. And when you come to a stop, notice what you see around you. It might be a symbol, an animal, a person. It might be a feeling, a sound, or a color, or something else. And when that does appear, and when you notice it, ask it if it is the East. And if it is not, simply ask your guide to continue to take you to the East. And wait until you notice something and then ask again if it is the East. And once you're with the East, ask the East how you can recognize it. Notice how you feel, or what you see, or smell, or hear. How do you notice the East? And ask the East what element is corresponding to. Is it air or something else?
Oh.
And ask the East what attributes are associated with it for you. And ask the East if it has a message for you. And take a moment to just be with the East. You can ask more questions, have more dialogue, or simply just take a moment of noticing what it feels like to connect with the East and the corresponding element. And take just another moment to wrap up anything that you're in the middle of with this direction before we begin to return. Good. Now it's time to return. Ask your power animal or guide who brought you to the East to return you back the way you came, returning you back to ordinary reality, back to the here and now, back into your body. And when you're ready, open your eyes, come back, orienting back into the here and now. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, so you were, I wasn't sure when you had us initially looking for the thing that represented the East. Was that supposed to be like a specific object? Because I was basically just seeing a like a landscape that represented it.
Yeah, it can be anything. Some people experience it as, like a person. It looks like a person. Some people it's a symbol or a color. Some people just have a feeling of what it feels like in the East. So it can be really different for everyone. So if you're seeing a landscape, then that's your East landscape. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so I wanted to just sort of wrap up with some ways to connect with nature. I'm sure there's a list much, much, much longer than this. So I just wanted to give some ideas to get you kind of started, and really just look for the ones that speak to you. Anything that feels like something that piques your interest, or you already have interest in that way. Um, just ways of kind of connecting with the cycle and the rhythms of life, and taking notice of where you are in them as a way of just psychologically connecting and being part of the nature that's around us. um, so one way is to notice the behavior of animals. Even if you're living in an urban environment, there's usually squirrels and birds and things around us. The spring is a wonderful time to notice all the baby squirrels around, and as the summer progresses, you start to notice these crazy adolescent ones where you can tell they're smaller than their adult counterparts, but they're not infants in the nest or whatever wherever they're born. I'm not sure exactly, but just sort of noticing the animals and how they're behaving, what part of life they're in. Do they have babies? um, that sort of thing. Noticing their activities. I've noticed definitely in the fall, you see them burying things all the time, the squirrels, getting ready for hibernation. And then in the winter, you don't see them as much. Or when you do, they're unburying things. So just noticing, using the animals around you as a way of gauging where we are in the cycle. Bird migration is another one for that. That's good for that. If there's certain birds that you're keen to, or you want to just learn about birds and read about what kind of birds are coming through the area where you live, and just notice them and when they're there, what parts of the year certain ones are there, which ones stay all year round. Again, when they're building nests, when you might see babies or hear babies chirping in nests, when they get really aggressive because there's birds in the nest. Which brings me to my next one: crows. Crows are in any environment, so they're an easy one to watch. They're here all year round, and no matter where you live, there's usually crows. So right now, in the beginning of the summer, they're in molting season. So you'll see, if you're someone who walks around the neighborhood, especially if you have dogs. I walk my dogs and I notice there are crow feathers everywhere, all over the ground. There are just lost crow feathers. And when I see them flying, you see ones that are missing a chunk of a wing or a chunk of the tail. And, they look kind of mangy and terrible this time of year because they're molting and losing their feathers. So that there's always that part of the year. That's correlates similarly to their fledgling part of the year, which is in the spring and earlier in the summer. You'll notice um, sometimes you'll find fallen birds, which are you're supposed to leave alone. But at the same time, if you know that there's cats in the yards around them, you might want to build them some protection if possible. Anyway, that's a whole nother issue. But with the babies, when they're in the early part of summer, when the babies are fledgling, the crows get aggressive. I have been out running in the morning and had a crow just full on like slam me in my back, which I couldn't believe happened, and I thought it must have been a mistake. And I kept running, and it did it 2 more times. So they can get crazy. They get really aggressive. It didn't hurt. I mean, a bird flying into your back doesn't feel like much, but I was just really surprised by it. So, but that got me looking into crows and their behavior and their times of year and things like that. And that was one way for me to kind of get into the flow of what's going on around me. And now each year I notice when those things are happening. Um, So celebrating the change of seasons is a really good one. One way of doing this, because our seasons, the way we mark them on the calendar, isn't always really, the way the seasons are actually flowing. But there's, if you pay attention to the solstices and the sabbats, those are usually associated with paganism or Wiccan religions. They do, because those are earth-based religions who are really connected to nature. They do an awesome job of having ceremonies and for the cycles of the year as those turn. So if that speaks to you, maybe either mark those on your calendar and do a little something in your morning ritual when it's a solstice, summer solstice, or winter solstice, or the equinoxes, which are the fall and spring. And then there's an in between, right in between those solstices are the sabbats. So there's ways of kind of just marking where we are and celebrating them in different ways. And there's often a lot of things happening, maybe not so much during COVID, but now that things are opening back up, you might even be able to find um, some ceremonies and other folks who are gathering to honor those. And or you can also just Google the wheel of the year and find out when those are and what they're associated with, and maybe just put a little something on your altar for each of those. There's often, each culture has different gods and goddesses that are associated, or colors, or different sorts of things, flowers, pine cones, those kinds of natural elements that are associated with the different ones. So you can play with that a little bit and see how you can incorporate that into your day if that speaks to you. There's following the moon cycle. So this is a good one for night owls, people who are up at night, to notice where the sun, or excuse me, where the moon is rising and setting. And also just what cycle it's in. Is it waxing? Is it waning? Knowing, where it's at in the moon's phase is a cycle. Same thing with the stars, noticing the constellations at night, going out and just seeing, what can I see? Is Orion up, and what part of the sky is it in? And other, getting to kind of know the constellations. That also depends on how well you can see the stars from where you are. And then there's always plants, and looking at the cycle of plants, when things are flowering, when things are growing, when they're dormant. Getting to know plants that are indigenous to the area that you live in is a great way if that speaks to you. I know that there are often teaching hikes available from different groups that'll teach you about the plants in the area, and you can kind of watch the cycles as they grow through, or even maybe go for hikes, which hiking, of course, is another way. Going for hikes and trying to identify those plants and as you see them is a great way to connect in, not only with nature and the cycles, but also to your geographic location and how they differ from other areas. You can bring in elements of creativity. So draw, paint, use the elements in your art, working with clay, working with, I showed when I was going over my altar, you'll see behind me, there's some pine needle baskets, that's just, it's fun to go for a hike and pick those up and then work them into a project and know that I'm making something with those natural elements. So anything that you can do that's creative is a great way to connect. And then you can actually also dance the elements. So if you feel so inclined when you do one of these journeys to, like we did the East today, if there's a certain feeling or anything that comes up and you want to just sort of dance that, merge that, bring that feeling into you and just put some movement to it, that's a great way to do it. And or song. And songs don't have to have words. They can just be humming or sounds or whatever comes to you. Doing some creative things that way. And then connecting with the specific elements, of course, with water. You can swim, you can play in the rain, you can visit waterways. With earth, there's gardening, go out and dig a hole. I remember trying to, when I was a little kid, thinking that I could dig to the continent below. Hiking, making mud pies, anything with the earth. Just being outside is really being part of the earth. With air, you can do breath work, practice breath work. There's tons and tons of different videos on how to do breath work. Or you can just take time throughout your day to just be mindful and grateful for your breath, for your breathing. Just being glad that you are able to take in earth. Thank you, or excuse me, air, and that you can also use air as an element as for burning incense on your altar. If you want to do a little representation of each of the elements on your altar, you can put a little cup of water, a little, just some dirt in a bowl for earth or whatever feels right. You can do incense for air and then light a candle for fire. So with fire, you can do candle gazing, try cooking with fire, maybe utilizing a campfire, a fire pit, which I'm hesitant to say at this time of year, just because we're at the time of recording in fire season and drought season and crazy hot temperature season. So be safe with fire, of course, but there's ways that you can use that. So like everything else, just find what speaks to you and make time for it. So again, remembering the two magic parts of any kind of shamanic work is focus and intention. So just be mindful, pick a way or two ways, two, three things, whatever speaks to you, and actually put them on your calendar or come up with a reminder, something that just pops up on a notification every now and then, just to check in with whatever it is that you've said that you're going to do. But putting some intentionality to it and following through instead of just sort of listening to it and saying, yeah, that sounds cool, and then letting it all go, which we're all very, very good at taking things in on an intellectual level, but then not doing it so much in the experiential level. But it's really the experiential level that brings it into your heart, that brings it into your psyche, and deeper levels like that. So as always, connect with one another on Mighty Networks and share your ideas and reach out. If you're using the Mighty Networks app, I encourage you to use the Mighty Networks app, and I encourage you to turn on notifications, because I do add extras. I add recorded journeys and things like that. Little things that we don't necessarily do during or talk about, or that add to what we've talked about in the session. So it's a good way for you to know when I've added those. I always send out a notification whenever I've added something new. So turn those on if you don't have them on. And then it's also a place for you to connect with me. So if you have any questions, please reach out on that. And then I would love to know what you guys are liking so far, since we've got, I think this is our fourth one. So I'd love to know what's working, what's not working, what you like, what you don't like, what you want to hear more of, something that haven't gone over that you've heard about that you want to know about. Those sorts of things. Mighty Networks is a great place to message me specifically and let me know more about what you want. And then next week, we'll go over part 2 of the medicine wheel, which we'll talk about how to use that for projects, how to use that as a psychological and emotional tool to kind of move through things that you want to move through and not stay stuck in a certain area. So look forward to that next week. And then if anyone wants to stay on the call for and Q&A afterwards without being recorded, stay on. And then otherwise, I will go ahead and end the recording. So thanks everyone for today, and we'll see you next week.